What's going on, everyone? I'm here with filmmaker Ty Young, and he is the filmmaker of Filling the Gap. How you doing, Ty?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Phil. How are you?
I'm doing good. Now, one thing that we speak about on this channel is educating black people on their history. One of the biggest things that we have within our community is the lack of education, and it goes with the program of making black people feel inferior because they teach that all black people ever done in this country was be a slave on a plantation. They don't teach the great civilizations we had way before the transatlantic slave trade, or even before Europeans even came to any kind of power. And they definitely don't teach what happened to us during slavery, even after slavery, how much we have contributed to this nation, how much that if we would not be here, they wouldn't have half of the stuff that they have today that they use on a daily basis. So thank you for joining us on the program. Could you give us a little background on yourself and what got you to want to educate black people?
Well, first off, it's a great topic, Phil. Especially in the school systems today, they don't infuse our history into the curriculum. And one of the major problems is, you talked about Aunt from. I love the piece you did on Aunt from the Fresh Prince. I really thought I thought it was amazing. I think you were to the point. Bottom line is, we talk a lot about what education does not do for our people.
Mm-hmm.
But what do we do for education? And my thing is, if we're complaining about our history being taught in schools, what are we doing about it? And most people don't really do much about it. They complain about it, and we go back and we don't hold picket signs at the Board of Education saying, look, this is what we want to infuse into the curriculum to teach about our history. But I remember back years ago, about probably like 5 years ago, in San Francisco, the gay community stood up for themselves. You know what they did? They marched in San Francisco and fought for a right to have homosexual education in schools. And they fought and they fought and they fought. And I think in some areas right now they do have that. But with our people, I think we're going to have to really get up off our butts, man, and say, look here, we weren't just slaves like you just mentioned earlier. We weren't just oppressed during the antebellum period. What we did was we accomplished some great things in America, which made America one of the wealthiest countries today. And my approach to the film, basically to develop a film that can be infused into state curriculums, that can be even a supplemental tool used to teach about our history during the antebellum period. And I met this young lady by the name of Mary J. Fears. And Mary Fears was is still a genealogist. She's a reenactor, and she's a storyteller. And I was hired to shoot a commercial in Olustee, Florida. It was about a reenactment battle. It was called the Battle of Olustee. And at this battle, it was a battle about the Civil War. And when I went out there, man, it was like 20,000 white people. I mean, they were just flooded all over the place. And I think out of the 20,000, I think probably 0.5% was black. And that part of the 0.5% was Mrs. Fears, who was at a booth with her husband. She's in her 70s at the time, telling stories about our history. She was telling me stories about the bridge builders, the people who invented, kids who were 9 and 10-year-olds who were inventing things and had to actually sell their invention for $1,000 to buy their freedom. And these things aren't taught in schools. So we basically did, when she met me, she said, Tyrone, you're the camera guy, you're out here, you know what, how can you help me tell our story? I said, well, I don't know what to really do right now. You know, I know I'm making money, so what does that have to do with me? And I thought about it. It has a lot to do with me. And she started telling me stories about people I did not know, like Horace King, the bridge builder. She told me some things about, you know, Mary McLeod Bethune that I knew, which was later, but she told me a lot of things I didn't know about her. And she also told me things about some of the younger kids who were who built the first propeller wheel for a boat.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, it's amazing. I said, I didn't know this. She says, yeah. She said, well, you're going to have to help me tell the story. So look, I got to go to LA. When I get back to Florida, I'll give you a call. So I got back and I gave her a call, and she said, I'm on my way to your house. I said, well, you just can't come to my house like that. What's going on? So she said, my husband and I are coming by your house, and we want to talk about this. So she came out, we talked about it. We got some educators together, and we decided to do a film that can be used to supplement what they're not teaching in schools about our history. As far as we got social studies supervisors together, we got we have some of the superintendents got together, and we all got together and figured out this is what we need to put in this film. And once the film was done, I could reach out to my friends in Hollywood and say, I need some help with this film. They didn't understand how we were going to make money. I said, well, it's a really touchy area here. I mean, it's about our history, and it's going to be a slow process in making money back. And they said, well, we don't want to have anything to do with it. So after we did the film, we met Julian Bond. We had Julian Bond come by the house and have lunch with us. He came by, he watched the film, man. He called the NAACP and said, yeah, I got to see this. So the NAACP headquarters, they said, well, Tyrone, we can't really nominate you for an Image Award because it wasn't nationally televised. I said, well, it can't really be nationally televised until I get some recognition from you all. And they said, well, here, why don't you send 100 copies of the film, man? I was like, man, I just finished spending $500,000 to make the film. Now you want me to spend another $1,000 and some dollars and make copies and send to you so you can view the film? I said, I'll send you one copy. I'll sit together and one woman watch it. I said, we can't do that. They watched the film. About 2 weeks later, say, hey, man, we love your film. We want to nominate it for an Image Award. I was like, well, cool.
Awesome.
So, go ahead.
No, I say awesome.
From that point on, we still didn't, even though we were nominated for an Image Award, we still didn't know how to market the film. And what I had to do is I had to get on the trail. After we were nominated, it didn't stop there because no one was ringing my phone and saying, hey, we want the film. I'm going to give you a distribution deal. So I basically had to travel. I just got married. I had to travel from state to state, presenting the film to schools and school districts and hoping that they would hear me. And I got very fortunate. Some called me when I got there. I went by the schools and with just unsolicited, just walked by and say, hey, you got to see this film. And a lot of educators, man, saw the film, and from that point on, it just plummeted, man. It went crazy. And I've been on the road ever since, talking about the film and presenting it to schools. So that's basically how we got started with Filling the Gap, and why I pursued Filling the Gap was to just make sure that our people and everyone else got the correct word about our people and what we represent to this country and what we contributed to this country.
One thing that helped with awakening me to a lot of things is education on our history. And that is something that these people in these schools do not want us to have. I mean, if you pay attention to the curriculum in school when it comes to our history, it goes from you a slave, Abraham Lincoln released you, then it skipped all those years and get to the civil rights movement with Martin Luther King, like he's the only one. And then after Martin Luther King, that's just it. That's all the thing they teach. They don't teach that we was here before 1492. They don't teach that, us and the Native Americans were great friends. We traded a lot of things. I had a Native American man told me that, hey, this particular drum we use, we got this from Africans. This is way before Europeans came over here. But they don't believe that we came over here way before they came here. We were already living here before they came here.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of evidence to that. Native Americans will even tell you that. It's just amazing to me how education is used to dumb down our kids and really everybody nowadays, because people who are simple-minded, it's easier to control, because when you become awakened with education and knowing your history, you can't feel inferior anymore when you look up and notice that we have created so many things in this nation. If we were removed from this nation, never came here, they wouldn't have, I'm going to say, about 60 to 70% of the stuff they have now.
Correct. I always, I have this conversation with people all the time. I said, what if the NBA was a black NBA and we control the NBA? Do you think that white people would swarm to our community to watch our basketball players? Of course they would. Now, what if we control the NFL Do you think white people would swarm to our community to watch NFL players? Or do you think that we could sell syndicated time to them to watch our basketball players? Of course. So my question to everyone is, why haven't we done that? Why haven't we united? Like, even they're saying Hollywood. You know, I'm just telling you, Hollywood don't owe us anything.
Mm.
Hollywood was built for the people who built Hollywood. Hollywood was built for the people who wanted to glamorize or to bring forth their history or tell their stories. So my question to everyone is, why can't we forget about what Hollywood isn't doing for us and do for ourselves? I love the concept of you building your own studio for you to tell stories about what's going on in our community, and that's very important. We can't just keep accepting what people give us. We're going to have to take what's rightfully ours. And in order for us to take what's rightfully ours, we're going to have to develop it. We're going to have to work together. And that's the only way around it. And to me, it's still a slave mentality. You take what they have given you and you shut your mouth and go on by your business and be happy. And you share it with no one else but yourself and your family if you want to do that. So I just feel, honestly, a lot of these things that are happening in the world today, you know, like Hollywood or us not having certain things that we deserve, it's our fault. I'm just telling you. We have a great community of leaders. The only thing we need to do is form, need to get together and unite, and also build a kingdom that we should have always built. And I'm not saying that Martin Luther King was wrong. I'm not saying Malcolm X was wrong. But I'm saying Malcolm X made more sense to me. Why would you fight? Why would you walk down the street, be humiliated, tormented, and beaten to live amongst people who don't want you to live amongst them? Why? And then they'll say, look, we'll give you this property, we'll give you the projects, but you live in this corner of us. Why should we accept that? It's unacceptable in so many ways. So with our history, with it being infused into the state curriculums correctly, it's going to be up to us to say, look here, we are not going to send our kids to these schools. We forbid this curriculum because it is not telling the stories that we want our kids to hear about our history or anyone else. So all I'm saying to a lot of people feel is it's time for us to stand up and say, we're not just going to accept what you're giving us. We can sit here and talk all day about what they are not doing for us, but then we need to start talking about what we're doing for ourselves. Does that make sense, Phil?
Yes, well, I'm a big proponent of doing for self. I believe in that. And I'm totally against the slave mentality that you're describing. For instance, like when you were talking about Aunt Viv earlier, you know, she made that little sly comment, you're not a news outlet. Why? Because I'm not a white organization or what? Because we'll sit here and put down black people all day long because we have so much of a slave mentality that the only thing is right is that it has to be white. That and white folks ain't telling you to do that. You just got that already pre-programmed in your mind from your slave mindset, probably was taught from your slave parents. Because this generational slave mentality is why this stuff keep going on. None of us are on a plantation anymore. And the same thing with filmmaking. You know, or you can only be a filmmaker unless you come up through their ranks, or it's only good unless they put their stamp of approval or their money behind it or whatever, instead of doing it on our own. And then this is the thing. These people watch everything we do. Trust me, I know what I'm telling you. They watch everything we do. And they will sit back and they see it'll be a good thing, and here they come. You know, how we like to buy into that, or we like to get the rights to that, or we like to do this to do that. I mean, that's how they do it. You know, but they do it for the most part of trying to make sure to buy off their competition, so they don't have competition. There's a lot of reasons they do that stuff. But why is it that when it comes to black people, some of them, not all, that we are so deeply ingrained into the slave mentality that we feel that anything about us is horrible, and that anything about everybody else outside of us is just so good? I mean, why is it to the point that we even attack each other over it?
Well, you know, I was at Friendship Baptist Church in North Carolina about a month ago, and it resonated with me there, not because of the friendship, but as I was going there, I was writing a little speech, but when I got there, I just discarded it and decided not to use it. I think, to answer your question, is like when we look in the mirror, we look at a reflection of what we become. We look at a reflection of who we are now as opposed to who we really are. And we look at ourselves, and sometimes we hate ourselves. Because you look at your friend, or someone else's friend, you say, you know what? This guy here is definitely not the ideal person that I think he should be, or the ideal person that the white man is, or the ideal person that you know, the ideal person that is a role model or a leader. But I tell people all the time, man, it's like half the things that have happened to us is not our fault, but the other half is. See, to me, it's like that mentality has been engraved in us for a long time, that we're subservient. And it's been engraved in us for a long time simply because of what we have allowed to happen to us, and what we have allowed for them to give us. So if we stop allowing them to control us in that way monetarily, and also controlling us through the media, then I think that we will be okay, because we don't respect each other because we look in the mirror, we look at each other as a reflection of each other. If you look in a mirror and you saw a white person inside yourself, not you, but someone else, they'd probably be okay with it because they don't have that black skin. It's not our fault that we have the black skin. It's not our fault that we were stolen and brought into America to live here. It's not our fault that we were fought to worship a blue-eyed Jesus. It's not our fault. But then again, we still hold ourselves accountable for it, instead of holding the oppressor accountable for it. So I feel like if we got the proper education, like you said earlier, you know, to me, if you understand your history, then what you're doing is you're enabling yourself to have some sort of pride and pride in your history and pride in yourself. If you enable yourself to learn about your history. But if you don't, then you're going to still look in that mirror and look at the image of you and hate yourself because of what America has done to our people, and 50% of it. And the other 50% is how we continue to allow this to happen to ourselves. When I look, if someone said to me once before, I get this a lot, Tyrone, man, you know what, man, black people always doing this, man, keeping us back. I said, look here, the reason I am where I am today is because of black people. The reason why my film is successful today, Film the Gap, is because of black people. And the reason why it's successful is because of black people saw a value in it. Does that make sense?
Correct.
They saw value in the film, and they saw themselves different. They said, wow, I did not know this about our people. And man, they would just cry sometimes. And they said, thank you for doing this. They said, I wish I would have learned this in school. Why didn't my parents, why didn't everyone force this in school? And they said, give me 5 copies of the film. I'm going to distribute it to my family. I said, well, there you go. Now start with us. You can't leave it up to them. And like I said, you know, when we get a little bit, I don't think that it's done on purpose for us not to share it, but it's a fear of not having it again. Does that make sense? I think all of it is fear, man.
Well, my opinion of that is this. I don't think is you fear you're going to lose something if you say scale up and not help the community. A lot of times because of the self-hate that when they see some black people maybe a little bit higher than them in their mind, that they don't know the full story what's going on with them people. A lot of times they attack you so much. They'll attack, try to belittle you, try to hurt you, try to do all this other stuff. And then you notice that, wait a minute, I don't even have the white people doing me this stuff. They don't be going that hard against me. Like what,
right.
my own shit, and it start bothering you that your black people is attacking you, and you get to the point and be like, man, forget them. I said, because I worked hard to get to where I'm at, and then they sit up here just ridiculing me, saying this about me, saying that about me, you know, so I can kind of get, you know, how you can get that way, but you got to understand that those people are slaves. They're not the representation of black people. And unfortunately, some people, you know, look at those slaves within our community as the representation of black people. So they just move away from them. They don't talk to them. They don't want to do nothing with the people. But there's a lot of good people within our community who want the education, who want to be shown how to invest money, who want to be shown how to create businesses, who want to do for self, who want to get rid of the crime in our community, who want to get rid of the single parent epidemic, who want to bring back the big families, 2-parent households. There's more good people in our community than those who are out there acting a fool. So that's what I pay attention to, the good people. You know, I don't
Good.
got
Yes.
time for people that's being negative. And then I tell people all the time, I'm not trying to save you. Even the Bible says that Jesus, not everybody gonna be saved. So if he didn't say everybody gonna be saved, I'm not gonna worry with you no more. I'm worrying with the people who want an education, who want to get rid of slave mentality, who want to do for self. Because
Right.
this dependence on this American government and
Right.
being war is me for everything, 'cause trust me, I talk about what happened to us. I just did a video about the war on drugs and how Nixon aide said that it was basically a war on black people and also the anti-war whites. But it was definitely targeted against us. Us, okay? So that's the kind of stuff that we need to be focusing on talking about. Now, what are we going to do about it?
Correct. 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 And now let's have a round table of a solution. We had a round table. We talked about you brought the discussion to the you brought the problem to the table. Now let's have a round table of a solution. What do we do about it?
Well, let me ask you a question. Where can people find the film?
You can go to tyyoungfilms.com. And you can also, once you go to tyyoungfilms.com, you'll see a link up that says essenceofhistory.com. You can click on that link. It'll take you to another one of my websites, and you can purchase a film there.
Okay, we'll try to put the link in the description box so people can get the film, look at it, sit down with your family, you know, get educated. That's the thing. It's great to sit down with your wife, your kids, or just you don't have a spouse. Just sit down with your kids and say, you know what, we are going to take some time out and we're going to learn something. That's something that nobody can take away from you. Because the one thing about education, no one can steal that from you. We need to do that as a family, get educated, because we don't know everything. Trust me, the same broken education system that you're learning, we learned as well. So in order for us to get awakened, we had to educate ourselves. So buy the film, check it out. Now, how people can get in touch with you on social media?
You can just, I'm on Facebook. Gosh, man, I'm trying to set everything else up. I'm on Facebook. You can reach me on there, but that's basically it, man. I honestly feel I get so many emails and so many people. I don't have an assistant anymore to monitor all this stuff. And I love for people to text me. I have another phone number. People can text me. It's on my website. You can text me anytime. I respond quicker than going to the social media because it takes up so much of my time.
Yeah, social media, unfortunately, is something that we have to be in now. It's just, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and I tell people all the time, I say, you do better contacting me on those platforms than you do probably YouTube, because I get so much coming in, it's easier for me to monitor it there. But people to check out the website, make sure you purchase the film. It's a decent film. I've seen some things I did not know on the film that I was very proud of, especially about the young man making the utensils for us to eat with, the forks, spoons, and knives. I didn't know a young black kid did that here in America. See, they make you think everything else that you didn't know. So the reason why you got a fork, spoon, and knife that's metal is because of a black kid. So
Benjamin.
Excuse me?
You got Benjamin Bradley's, you got Benjamin Montgomery's, all the let me give you a little history on the Benjamins. Benjamin Franklin, we all know what Benjamin Franklin is. So it basically happened back then when the slave master had a pretty smart kid. He was called Benjamin. So you got like a couple of Benjamins in fill in the gap, like Benjamin Bradley, Benjamin Montgomery. These little kids were like 9 and 10-year-olds that were inventing. So their slave master gave them a name of Benjamin. And by the way, what they did create and which is they were innovative in a lot of things, and they couldn't get a patent for because of their status as a slave. And a couple of the slave masters took the inventions and patented it and paid them $1,000, which a couple of these cats bought their freedom with that. So, and one kid asked me, says, what does that have to do with us today? I said, a great deal. Simply because our ancestors paved the way for you to be here where you are today, bro. Mm-hmm. Our ancestors could have said, forget about it. We're not gonna stand for this. We're not gonna get him be tormented and whooped or enslaved. We're just gonna go ahead and do away with ourselves, kill ourselves, do a genocide on ourselves. But they didn't. They stood here and dealt with what they had to deal with. And then what the outcome was us being in America, having different opportunities for ourselves. It's not a great thing to me, but I think we did the best we could then, and we're not doing the best we can now. Does that make sense, Phil?
Yes, yes.
Our ancestors did some great things for us back then without resources. Think about it today. We have resources, and we're not doing the best we can. So I think that we need to give props to our ancestors, because there's no way in how we'd be here today without them really sacrificing so much for us. And I think young kids have to realize that they just weren't dummies or just weren't slaves picking cotton. These people were innovative in so many different ways and talented. You know what? How do you think the North was able to beat the South? You think that the South, you think the good old boys is going to sell out to the Confederates? No, it didn't. I mean, to the Confederates, it didn't happen that way. What basically happened, you had black scouts, man, that took these soldiers throughout the South and told them where the places were, told them how to get to these Confederate camps. So you got to realize, man, our contributions, man, are just overwhelming. You can just do a whole history book on our contributions to America, and that could be a curriculum in its own entity. Does that make sense?
So yes, that definitely make a lot of sense. That's for sure, and we support that. We definitely support that here. We want people to be educated. You know, I think definitely within our community, but I think all people should be educated on, I think, our contribution as well. That way, you think once you know the contribution, that it can destroy the doctrine of a demon called white supremacy, because that is a ideology that's taught from school, and people don't realize that. You know, you teaching everything that white people done is great. You never talk about the murders, the genocide, the rapes, the stealing of the land, the stealing of resources. You never talk about that in historical reference, not making lies up, okay? We're just telling them what it is. And if you would actually show everything that everybody did, good and bad, then you would see we all equal, we all make contributions, and we won't have this I'm better than you because of skin color stupidity that we got going on in America. It all starts from the education system, and that's where white supremacy starts, and that's how you have to destroy it. It's through the education system.
One more thing I want to elaborate on. You mentioned earlier, why do you think black people have sort of disparity against each other? And I think it's simply because of our identity. You know, when you look at, when people say I'm Irish, they can tell you about their Irish history. When people say I'm from Ethiopia, they are from Ethiopia. But you think about the blacks that came from Africa back then, we can't trace our ancestry, man, not back to Africa. The only traditions we have
actually,
in America.
We can, brother. They got DNA tests now to do it now.
Well, you know, what I meant by that was you can, but really can you see, do you know what tribe you're from in Africa?
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? Do you know exactly who your ancestors were in Africa?
I haven't done it. Me personally, I'm going to do a DNA test because I really want to know exactly what part I came from. I had an African person tell me who it looked like I came from based upon my facial features, which that was kind of different to have a person look at you and say, oh, based on your facial features, you look like your ancestors came from this spot. You know, so I'm like, I said, that's different, you know.
That is different. Do you know the name of your ancestors? Or can we trace that?
Oh, I did. Well, he was just basically talking to me because he was, you know, we had a long conversation. So, but now as the actual tribe, no, I wouldn't.
A lot of that was lost in the ocean. A lot of our culture, a lot of our genetics was cut off back then. So I think that we also have an identity crisis, man. Who are we? Where do we come from? We know we're Americans, but then again, we're African Americans. But where is the proof of us being African Americans other than the color of our skin? Other than people saying that we're descendants of Africa? Where is the proof there? I would like to know that if my people were from Africa, I'd like to know who my great-great-great-grandfather's grandfather was, what role he played in Africa. These are the things, this is part of the history. I think that, I don't know how we can recapture that, but I think that it's lost. There's no way that we can say that you're from the Zulu tribe, or from this tribe, if most of your people were cut off then and killed before even the hike over to America. And also, when you came to America, your name was gone. They took your original name away from you. Mm-hmm. So how do you trace that? You know what I'm saying? How do you really trace that? How do you say, I'm this person, that person? People look in the mirror and say, hey, I'm an American, but who am I?
I think something that we should all do, and which I plan on doing in a few years. I'm just kind of waiting for my littlest child to grow up just a little bit more. I'm definitely going to take a trip to the motherland. I'm thinking maybe Ghana or Kenya, maybe South Africa, something like that. I think I'm also leaning between Ghana and Kenya though, for the most part, because they
I would go to
speak.
Ghana.
Huh?
Yeah, I would go there. I would go to Ghana first. I would go.
Yeah,
I would
because they
go to
speak
Ghana.
English. They're a thriving country. They have a lot of great things there. I know someone who's actually from there, and they was going a lot every year. And they'll tell me about it. I want my kids to see it, including myself, because everybody say that once you go one time, it does something to you. You don't come
But, but,
back the
but,
same.
but my question to you is, how do you connect that part of history with your history today? That's my question. There's a huge disconnect. But how do you explain to your kids that you are from Africa? They're going to want to know where, what part of Africa, who are our ancestors in Africa, why are we over here? So no matter what happens, when you go to Africa, there's still a huge disconnect because of the lack of knowledge and lack of history that we have of our ancestors. I mean, it's just, how do you do that? And I can understand. So, in America, my ancestors trace back to being in 1800, who was in America, who was shipped over here. But from that part of being shipped over here and living in America, how do you go back to Africa? And people say, you don't like it in America, go back to Africa. How the hell are you going to go back to Africa? You don't know where to go in Africa. You don't know anyone in Africa. How do you trace your roots back to Africa?
The same people that say go back to Africa, and you go to Africa, and guess what you'll see in South Africa for sure? Them. I'm like, wait a minute, I can't even go to Africa, and you not there?
Right.
So don't tell me to go back to Africa, and then I go and you there too. So,
That's right.
So
It's a great, that's my thing. It's just like, how do you do that? You know what I mean? How do you say that I'm from Zimbabwe? How do you say my people are Kenyan? How do you say we're from South Africa? How do you correlate that history with the present history? How's that happen?
well, unfortunately, maybe we can't do that, and we can study as much as possible because there's a lot of research out there. We can do everything we can, but you know what? In your heart and in your spirit, when you get certain places, you know your home, you know you belong. And from what people, I think most of the people that told me has been there. They just have that spiritual connection to Africa and the African nations. They're like, man, I feel like I'm home. It's like they say I've never seen that kind of response from people like they've gotten over there. And so I just want my kids to know. I want my kids to see it because they need to know. And I want them to have that sense of pride. Like, this is your true culture. This is what you really come from. Not this American stuff that you got going on here that's just totally out of hand, totally wrong. This is not our original culture that we live in now here in America.
But I understand that. But my question to you is, how do you prove to them that this is actually our culture? Do you have ancestors there? Can you trace back the paperwork? See, me as a kid, I always wanted facts. I was like, Ma, all right, am I this or am I that? And she couldn't give me the true answers. How do you get the true answers to, if you take your kids to Africa, how are you going to show the homeland that there is no, that which is, you say is our homeland, but there's no trace of our people?
Well, if you're looking on that, you're not going to find that. That's just call it what it is. They did not keep accurate. Oh, this black person we picked up come from this tribe and this, because a lot of them was captured. A lot of them that were captured from different African nations that took over. Okay, that happened as well. They sold off those they were keeping in indentured servitude. So it's a lot of things that happen like that. You're not gonna, but if you go in history, a lot of people can't find exactly. Even if Europeans, they don't know exactly where part of Europe they came from, their exact house. I mean, a lot of that stuff get lost, but you know that this is where I'm from. I may be from Europe. I may be from China. I may be from this and that. I kind of have an idea, maybe, but with our situation is a whole lot different because no records are really kept exactly what slave came from where. But for us, as African descent people, I still think we should go and see it for ourselves. And just have that experience at least once. A lot of people has even moved over there after having those experiences, and you have to ask yourself, why would they move over there? Well, what did they experience over there? that made them to say, you know what, I'm gonna leave America and go stay in an African nation because it just feel like, you know, it's home. So even 50 Cent building a big mansion over there. David Banner got stuff over there going. He's doing a lot in Africa. It's a lot of people doing great things over there that connected with the people. And they never been there. They don't know what tribe they came from or nothing like that. So that's how we have to look at it.
My point to you is, I think that where we came from, we have a really deep bloodline. And our personalities are very rich. And I think that even in Africa, we still had tribes here. We have hundreds of tribes. And I think that each one of us who are African descent come from a different tribe. And I think since we come from a different tribe, I think our conflict is our personalities and our blood, where we come from. And I think if we all found out that, say you're from the Zulu tribe or you're from this tribe, our ancestors prove, our history proved that we never got along because of us, because of who we are. And I think that's still same in America. I still think we have conflict because of that. Not completely because of slave mentality. We have conflict because of our ancestors, where we came from, our bloodlines, our genetics. And I don't think people really even think about that much. But I do know that if you go to Africa, we had hundreds of tribes, hundreds of kings, we had servants, we had kings, servants, we had people who were soldiers for the king, and I think we're all that way. And I think that's just in our DNA. But in America, we're all discombobulated now because we don't understand that. So that's, I think, why we have more rift with each other. So we get it from every side. We get it from the white people. We get it from ourselves. And then once you get it from white people, you get it from ourselves, our people, then in yourself, the struggle becomes tougher, man. So I'm thinking that it's much deeper than us being enslaved. It's much deeper than what the white folks have done to us. I think we have to go back to our bloodline, our DNA. And if we could trace that, I think we can answer a lot of questions.
I want to thank you, Ty, for coming on the show today, teaching us about some history that we didn't know, educating us, and also discussing your film. Guys, make sure you go check out the film, research his website. If you want to contact him, he got his text message up there. You can text message him and get to know him a little bit better. So, Ty, thank you for taking the time for coming on the show, and we'll keep looking forward to working with you in the future.
Oh, thanks a lot, Phil. Thanks for having me. Take care.